At the party celebrating the new president's inauguration, I couldn't find my place card. As I was hanging around in trouble, Johnson, the department head, came over with a smirk and approached me.
Hey, what are you looking for?
I didn't want to admit it to Johnson, but reluctantly said, I can't find my seat. Then, Johnson pointed to the foot of the chair with the luggage placed near the wall. There, my place card was tossed down as if thrown away.
Your chair was used for the luggage area. There's no seat for a high school grad.
That's what this is about. Johnson had deliberately moved the chair supposed to be mine to the edge, piled some unidentifiable luggage on it, and placed the seating chart under the chair.
Someone without a seat wandering around is in the way. Get away now.
I decided to just listen to what Johnson said. Then I'm leaving, but if you run into trouble later, it's none of my business. Right after, the chairman appeared and asked, "Where is the president's son?" My name is Alex Miller, 30 years old. I'm part of the hotel division at a major electronics manufacturer, Smith Electronics. The hotel division, as the name suggests, handles the electrical appliances associated with hotels. This involves introducing new products, replacing or maintaining ones that have been in use for a while. It's a busy department, but more interesting than just selling consumer electronics. One day, our division head was transferred abroad, and a new boss who had been the sales director at a subsidiary took his place. The new department head, Johnson, was known for his overwhelming sales ability. We, the hotel division team, were looking forward to his arrival.
From today, I'm counting on you all. With me here, let's increase our sales, outstrip other manufacturers by a mile, and become the top in sales in the hotel industry. I want you all to put your backs into it.
The new department head gave us a very encouraging welcome speech. All right, let's do this. I was motivated. However, that was only at the beginning. The first thing Johnson did as the new sales director was to conduct a background check on the employees. Not just sales performance, but also educational background, family structure, and career history were all scrutinized. The purpose of this wasn't clear, but that's Johnson's explanation.
By understanding what kind of person each employee is, we can find a sales style that suits them the best. In this way, each person's performance improves, and so does the department's overall performance.
The previous director did pay close attention to the employees' characters and evaluated them accordingly, but never went as far as to scrutinize prospective employees like that. It seems the approach varies from person to person. Johnson carefully talked to each employee, discussing their responsibilities and various strategies, as he said he would. Then, it was finally my turn for the interview. When Johnson called me, I responded to the other employees' words of encouragement with a clenched fist and headed to the director's office. I knocked on the door of the director's office 3 times and entered after hearing "Come in." It felt like I was taking a job interview, which making me nervous. This feels nostalgic, but I wish I didn't have to go through this again. I was both excited and anxious. As I entered the director's office and waited for Johnson to speak, he looked me up and down from his seat and suddenly asked,
You have high school as your last education. Is this true?
"Due to certain circumstances, it's true that I only graduated from high school. I had no intention of hiding it, nor could I lie about it. After I honestly admitted it, Johnson sighed heavily and said, "How did someone with just a high school education get into this company?" As if it was a huge disappointment.
I don't need a bottom-rung man like a high school grad as you in my team. Remember, if you mess up, you're out of here immediately.
He declared. Although I was shocked by Johnson's declaration, I never thought it would go beyond that. I figured as long as I kept up my sales performance, there wouldn't be any complaints. After all, that was the only way I could have. Being a high school grad is an unchangeable fact, but it had never been a problem before. So I continued working as usual, but it seemed naive thinking.
Miller, what's going on here?
Is there a problem?
Is there a problem, you ask?
Johnson slammed the documents he was holding onto the desk loudly.
What's with the sales at this lakeside hotel you're managing?
So that's what this is about. Lakeside Hotel was mainly catering to budget inbound tourists from abroad. As you well knew, due to the global situation, its financial health deteriorated, leading to a temporary closure until a new owner took over and it could resume operations. Even after reopening, there wasn't enough budget to upgrade the electronics, so it's barely managing to continue business with minimal maintenance and essential replacements. However, with the recent revival of inbound tourism, the business has been gradually improving, and it was expected to return to its former state soon. I explained this to Johnson, but he wouldn't accept it, scolding me as if it was my fault. Then he declared,
Stop making excuses. This is why I hate dealing with bottom-of-the-barrel high school grads. Listen, if you can't recover Lakeside Hotel's figures by the end of this month, you're paying a fine.
Our company did not have such a fine system. Some colleagues tried to intervene, saying so, but Johnson wouldn't hear of it.
We, elite college graduates like me and you guys, might not need it, but someone hopeless like Miller needs this kind of discipline.
He emphasized again to me.
Got it? By the end of this month. Make sure you recover those numbers.
In the end, the situation didn't improve immediately, and I actually had 10% of my salary taken as a fine that month, on top of not receiving my sales allowance. According to Johnson, an employee who made no effort in sales didn't deserve a sales allowance.
Listen, this is the new policy for this department. Those who aren't serious about their work will continuously receive this kind of tough love, especially for those too dumb to understand. We'll be strict.
That's absurd, I thought, but Johnson said this, staring straight at me. Fortunately, Johnson's love whip towards me ended with that one time. The reason was that my performance wasn't bad enough to warrant a fine. I was already among the top performers in the hotel division, and fortunately, Lakeside Hotel finally started recovering, leaving Johnson with no angle to criticize. I decided to be extra careful and prudent in my work to avoid giving Johnson any further reason to target me. Though Johnson looked at me with displeasure, he couldn't do anything if I didn't make any mistakes. If he did, he'd have to start finding the elite college graduates he praises as well. Since then, Johnson hasn't been able to do anything to me. Still, the snide remarks continued, and the "this high school grad" comments didn't decrease. But if I treated it like background music while walking down the street, I gradually started to mind it less. Humans really can adapt to anything. Just when I had managed to settle into my job, there was a change in our company's presidency. The current president stepped down to become chairman, and his son, the executive director, took over as president.
Tomorrow is an important day. Let's all do our best to make a celebration for the new president memorable.
Johnson announced to his subordinates with a broad smile. On the day, the company was taking a full day off. There's a party for the new president's inauguration at a large hotel ballroom, inviting all employees. Employees left work looking forward to tomorrow. The party started at noon. Each department has tables set up in the rented venue. My department, the hotel division, was located in the middle towards the right end from the stage. I checked the seating chart and headed towards the hotel division's table. But something was off. I couldn't find my place card. After making a full round, I noticed that everyone else's name, including department head Johnson's, was there, except for mine. That's strange, I thought, but my colleagues already seated could only say they hadn't noticed my name, having sat down at their assigned spots. That's possible. As I was wandering around, confused, Johnson came over with a grin, approaching me.
Hey, what are you looking for?
I didn't want to say it to Johnson, but I had no choice but to admit, I can't find my seat. Johnson then pointed to the foot of a chair used for storing luggage at the edge of the room. There, my place card was discarded as if it was trash.
Your chair was used for the luggage area. No seat for a high school grad.
So that's what this is about. Johnson had deliberately moved the chair I was supposed to sit into the side of the wall, piled some unidentifiable luggage on it, and placed the seating chart under the chair. All to exclude me from the grand seat at the new president's inauguration party.
Someone without a seat wandering around is just in the way. Get away now.
Johnson said this with a pleased laugh. What a boring thing to do. Honestly, I was more shocked by the childishness of it all than angry, but I decided to just listen to what Johnson said. Then I'm leaving, but if you run into trouble later, it's none of my business.
What? Our company won't be troubled in the slightest by the absence of a lowly high school grad like you. Just disappear from the company while you're at it.
I got it. Please don't forget those words. With that, I left the party venue. When a party started, it turned into a bit of a commotion. I'll let Johnson handle the rest. Thinking that, I took a taxi home from in front of the hotel. When I got home, I took my smartphone out of my bag. I had turned it off when I left the hotel and got into the taxi. About 30 minutes have passed since then. Let's see what's happening. As soon as I turned on my smartphone, it immediately started blinking blue, indicating several messages and voicemails were waiting. Just as I swiped the screen to check the messages, the phone rang, and I accidentally answered it. Whether it was good or bad timing, it was Johnson on the line.
Hello, Alex. It's me, Johnson, your department head. Thank goodness you finally answered. Please come back to the venue right now.
Johnson sounded almost in tears as he spoke. What could possibly be the matter? I left because you told me to.
Don't say that. Just come back. It'll be a disaster if you don't.
I don't care about that. I was just following your orders, sir. I responded coldly.
I apologize. Please, I'm begging you, come back. If not, it might be the end for me. Please.
The latter part was said through sobs and sniffles, but it was no concern of mine. I don't care. That's why I told you. Whatever happens, it's not my problem.
Don't say that.
Johnson explained that right after I left, the party started, and the chairman noticed the vacant seat in the hotel division and asked, "Where is the president's son?"
I had no idea you were the president's son and the chairman's grandson. Your name was different, and nobody told me anything about it.
And then,
If I had known, I wouldn't have said those things. Please, come back. I'm begging you, please.
over the phone, Johnson repeated the same plea over and over. "Anyway, I'll tell everyone I left the party venue on Department Head Johnson's orders. Goodbye," I said mercilessly and turned off my phone again. Now, what will happen? Eventually, a car came from the venue to take me back. It wasn't because Johnson asked me to. It's because if I don't go back, my very character would be called into question. Upon returning to the venue, I was immediately escorted to my seat. This time, it's not my seat in the hotel division, but my new seat prepared on the podium. As I took my seat, the host introduced me.
Now, let me introduce you to the son of our new president, Alex. A big round of applause, please.
I was greeted with thunderous applause and took a seat next to my father, the new president, Tom Smith. My grandfather, now the chairman, was also sitting nearby. The host briefly introduced my background and announced that the hotel division of Smith Electronics would become an independent subsidiary, with me as its president. A murmur rose from the audience. Prompted by the host, I was set to give a greeting. I moved in front of the microphone and bowed to the audience. "I'm Alex Miller. For reasons, I've been going by the name Miller, but as I assume the position of president at Smith Hotel Management, a subsidiary, I'll be returning to my real name, Alex Smith. I'm looking forward to working with all of you." There seemed to be a bit of confusion among some in the venue, but it was quickly filled with loud applause. Johnson was nowhere to be seen, but then again, he probably didn't have the guts to stay in the venue after that. This left 2 empty seats at the hotel division's table, but since the division will soon be phased out, I didn't see it as a major issue. In truth, I've been going by Miller at the company, but my real name is Smith. It's the same surname as my grandfather, the chairman, and my father, the new president, because we are family. This has to do with the fact that I'm a high school graduate. When I was about to graduate from high school, I fell ill and had to be hospitalized for a long time. I had already decided on a university, but due to my need for hospitalization for more than half a year, I reluctantly had to give up my admission. The hospital had a classroom for long-term hospitalized children, but I often couldn't attend due to my condition. Then I had to be tutored remotely, but with treatment and days when I was too ill to do anything but sleep, my studies didn't progress as I had hoped. Still, I loved studying and didn't want my illness to stop me, so I made as much effort as I could. As a result, I obtained my high school diploma and was able to take the college entrance exams again. And then, after I had been accepted into college, unbelievably, my illness recurred, and I had to give up on going to college once again. I became despondent, losing the will to study, and even becoming passive about my treatment. That's when my mother's acquaintance suggested that perhaps it was my name that was bringing me bad luck. Though skeptical, my mother was desperate for anything that might help. After consulting with a priest, we were told about a tradition, still found in various parts of the world, of giving children unflattering names to protect them from malevolent forces. Names related to refuse, animals, or even vulgar terms were used to deceive malevolent spirits into thinking the child was not worth taking. Once the child reached an age where they could stand up to these forces, they would be given their proper name or called by their real name. Though such practices have become less common in medically advanced America, they persist in areas with low child survival rates. America used to be like that too. Perhaps they used false names to protect children from the clutches of evil. If you're feeling that down, why not use a pseudonym until you feel somewhat better? That's what I was told. It's unclear if the name is really to blame, but after it happens twice, it's natural to become anxious about various things. It seems like a good idea to try changing things up to improve your spirits. Of course, I couldn't take on a name that was distasteful, but it was suggested that I try using my mother's maiden name for the time being. So, outwardly, I began introducing myself as Miller. My mother even asked the hospital to note both Miller and Smith on my medical records. It seems the hospital wasn't too pleased at first, but after my mother insisted, they reluctantly agreed to cooperate. At first, I honestly thought, how can anyone believe in such silly superstitions? However, human emotions are a curious thing. Seeing my mother smile and assure me that everything would definitely be okay and I would get better gradually made me feel like maybe things would indeed turn out fine. And perhaps it was because I embraced that mindset and relaxed, focusing positively on my treatment, that surprisingly, I was able to regain my health in no time at all. My mother was overjoyed, convinced that changing the surname had made all the difference. Though the true reason for my recovery remains unknown. But since my mother was happy and said so, I figured it wouldn't hurt to keep it that way for a while. So from then on, I continue to introduce myself as Miller in public. I gave up on going to college, but instead, I decided to continue studying with a certain organization. It was an organization similar to what you might call a business workshop, and after my dad found out I was studying economics on my own, he introduced me to it, suggesting I should check it out. There, I studied various things related to company management, like economics, business administration, and finance. I also learned languages, picking up English, German, Chinese, among others. And now, I've joined my grandfather's company, keeping the fact that I'm his grandson a secret. This was when I was 22, the same age as recent college graduates. Actually, it was my idea to propose the launch of the hotel division. Both my grandfather and father agreed it was a good idea and decided to create the new department at the same time I joined the company. Aiming to eventually spin off this department into a subsidiary, I worked hard to build it up. Thanks to being recognized for our efforts here and there, I finally achieved my goal. After the party, I made a point to inquire about Johnson's fate. When the chairman, my grandfather, had his secretary ask why I wasn't at my seat, Johnson smoothly replied, it's the new CEO's welcome party. After all, I took this opportunity to put our department in proper order. A high school graduate is hardly necessary for the shining success of Smith Electronics. That's what he reportedly answered. Upon learning that I was the person he had referred to, my grandfather, the chairman, personally came to inquire about the president's son's whereabouts. At that point, Johnson finally realized I was his son and, in a panic, reportedly rushed to call me. Seeing Johnson desperately asking me to come back in the lobby, my grandfather's secretary realized we wouldn't make it in time for the new company's launch speech and sent a car to pick me up. Secretary told Johnson that we would have a detailed discussion another day and sent him on his way. 2 days after the party, in front of my grandfather, father, and myself, 3 generations, Johnson explained why he did what he did. According to Johnson, his father was a high school graduate who hardly worked, drank all day, and when upset, would become violent towards his wife and children. Having grown up in such an environment led Johnson to harbor hatred towards high school graduates, wanting to exclude them. I feel sorry for him, considering the kind of family environment he had. However, just because someone is a high school graduate, looking down on and trying to oust them is not something a leader should do. When my grandfather and father demanded an explanation of Johnson's actions, I honestly recounted everything. There was no need to defend him, nor did I intend to. It was then revealed that Johnson had embezzled the 10% of my salary he claimed as a fine and my sales allowance. He pressured the accounting staff to create a separate payroll slip for me, facilitating this embezzlement. Although the amount was small, it constituted embezzlement. An investigation into the subsidiary where Johnson worked before coming to headquarters fortunately found no similar misconduct, likely due to the absence of high school graduates among his subordinates there. As a result, the coerced accounting employee faced a 3-month pay cut and was required to submit a letter of reflection, while Johnson was demoted and transferred to a factory in a rural area. There are many high school graduate employees in the regional factories, whom Johnson despises. The world is filled with people from various backgrounds, all working hard and living their lives. Whether someone has a high school diploma, a college degree, a graduate school graduate, is a regular employee or a part-timer, everyone contributes. The decision was made hoping Johnson would come to understand this by working alongside those he looked down upon. However, unable to tolerate working with those he had demeaned, Johnson ultimately resigned. At that time, hearing Johnson's story, I fully understood that he had his own struggles, worked hard, graduated from a top university, and joined our company, which is considered a top-tier enterprise. And I also understood that he worked tirelessly to climb up to the position of department head. But that doesn't excuse his disdain for and unfair treatment of high school graduates. This time, the target was me, an unusual circumstance given my position as the president's son, and the matter was resolved relatively mildly. Had it been another employee, and had Johnson succeeded in his plan, he might have continued his wrongful actions. Embezzling salary could have escalated, potentially causing significant financial damage to the company. While I empathize with Johnson's circumstances, I cannot condone his actions. Everyone has their struggles. Hopefully, he will realize this in his new environment. Following the announcement of the new company at Smith Electronics' President Transition Party, news about the establishment. Of course, my journey to becoming the company's CEO would be a part of that narrative. Johnson might see this news somewhere. Announcing my position as president of the newly established company as Alex Smith was a significant moment. I had told my mother that I would revert to my original name once the hotel division became independent. Still, my mother was very worried, repeatedly asking if it was really okay to let me return. But I'm no longer a child. I'm a full-fledged adult. Even if something bad were to happen, I won't just be silently taken away. I can fight for myself. Mom, think about it. I'm turning 30. Sure, I've been seriously ill twice, and there's no guarantee I won't get sick again. But isn't that true for everyone? After I explained this to her, I somehow managed to convince her. Though I didn't attend college, the time I would have spent there was filled with learning and networking in different ways. These experiences form the foundation upon which I'll build and grow the new company. Education is important, but there are many who, for various reasons, couldn't follow that path. I hope our company can be a place for those who have gained valuable experiences outside of formal education. It's not just about increasing sales and growing the company. It's about nurturing a diverse workforce. This is my goal. As I embark on this journey, I bid farewell to the name Miller, which protected me, and embrace my true identity, Alex Smith, determined to achieve my objectives.
Finally, today is the wedding day of my brother, Tom. My brother and I grew up with many hardships. The biggest tragedy was losing our mom when we were teenagers. Since then, we've supported each other through life. No, I take back what I just said. More like, I've been overwhelmingly supported by my brother. The woman who has been supported him was his bride, Lisa. Lisa was a high school classmate of my brother, and he had a crush on her for the longest time, which finally blossomed into a relationship just before graduation. The love they've nurtured is now moving on to the next stage, marriage. Thinking about it makes me so emotional I could cry. Tom and Lisa wanted a simple wedding, but it turned into a big affair due to Lisa's father's wishes. Lisa's father, a Harvard grad and a top executive at a major company. She said he was bossy, and her family was troubled by his attitude.
Marriage comes with such things. It's about people with different values coming together as a family.
My brother said so. I haven't thought about my own marriage, so I didn't quite get it when he said that. That was a little while back.
And now the bride and groom will enter.
At the announcer's call, my brother in a tuxedo and Lisa in a wedding dress made their entrance. My tall and stylish brother, Tom, looked very handsome, and petite, delicate Lisa was adorable in her dress. Next to Lisa was her father. It was my first time seeing him, but he was as stern-looking as my brother had mentioned. After the vows and ring exchange, the room erupted in applause. Next, there were to be speeches from family and friends. My brother had asked me earlier if I wanted to give a speech, but speaking in front of a crowd is not my thing. I can't, sorry, bro.
Yay, I know that's not your thing. No worries. Ken and my friends will give the speeches.
He told me so. And he's my sweet brother. While I was reminiscing, the stern man, the bride's father, took the microphone to give his speech.
Is this on? I am Ken, the father of the bride, Lisa. Thank you all for coming to my daughter's wedding today.
He began his speech that way.
Lisa attended a prestigious private kindergarten and then went on to a prestigious private elementary school.
Her father spoke of her illustrious educational background from kindergarten through college.
Tom, the groom, graduated from a well-known private university and is now a lawyer. His educational background is impeccable, fitting for our family since he is a lawyer.
He spoke highly of my brother, but I was slightly put off by his condescending tone. Yet, given his nature, I suppose it was to be expected.
However, there is one individual of lower education among us today. I won't say who, but having such a person closely related to the groom's family, I am not pleased. I believe some of you understand what I mean. Marriage is about lineage. It's important to continue a lineage of excellent genes. Fortunately, Tom is outstanding, so I have turned a blind eye to his brother's inferiority and approved of the marriage. My generosity should surprise you.
Lisa's father delivered such a speech. The atmosphere in the room turned uneasy during his speech, but then fell eerily silent. I hadn't realized he was talking about me until he mentioned brother at the end, and I was stunned that someone could say such things. Yet Lisa's father continued.
Oops. I seem to have made everyone quiet. I hope you understand that I respected my daughter's wishes and allowed for the freedom to marry. Please continue to enjoy the reception. Well, I would like to tell that incompetent brother to just go home. And with that, I'll conclude my speech.
At that moment, my brother Tom suddenly ran and snatched the microphone from Lisa's father. The room went even quieter. Tom, gripping the microphone and with a stern look, started speaking with a forced smile.
Did I not mention it? Ken, did you forget what I said recently? Maybe you're becoming forgetful, which is worrying. Actually, my brother.
As my brother was about to speak the truth about me. My name is Ryan, I'm 20 years old. Recently, for my 20th birthday, Tom sent me a gift. It was a laptop. Something I had wanted for a long time. Such an expensive gift. I murmured alone at home. I picked up my smartphone and called my brother. Tom answered immediately.
Ryan, happy 20th birthday. Sorry I couldn't celebrate with you. How about we grab some dinner together this weekend?
He said cheerfully. It's okay, you don't have to fuss over a birthday meal or celebration. I'm not a child anymore. I replied gruffly. I was happy he cared, but I couldn't express it.
Don't say that. We won't be able to see each other soon. Let's grab a meal while we can.
Tom suggested that to me. Tom is my only family. After our parents divorced when I was in 6th grade, Tom went with our father, and I stayed with our mother, who passed away the next year. Later, I was taken in by our father, who struggled with alcoholism and poor health, making a stable life impossible. At that time, Tom, a university student, lived alone and worked part-time to support himself and managed to keep attending university. I tried to live with our father, not wanting to burden Tom, but as a teenager, I couldn't endure the abnormal life and couldn't focus on my studies. Even after finishing middle school, I couldn't see myself as a high school student. I just spent my days zoning out, my mind blank. When asked about my future aspirations by a teacher, I had no answer, and I was in no position to discuss it with my father.
You should graduate from high school.
My homeroom teacher advised, so I decided to attend high school. I told my brother about it later.
Why didn't you consult me about school stuff?
My brother was worried and scolded me, but I didn't want to get in the way of his life. By the time I became a high school student, our father's health worsened, leading to his hospitalization.
Ryan will live with me. That's a decision.
My brother insisted, calling me to live with him despite the challenges of balancing his job and studies, always striving to keep the mood light so we wouldn't struggle in our life together. I did part-time jobs after school, contributing to the rent and utilities, and took care of household chores to lessen my brother's load. It was busy, but living and cooperating with my brother remains a precious memory. The joy of living together again after years apart post-divorce overshadowed the loneliness we felt during our separation. Strangely, when we lived together as children, there were times we found each other annoying and fought constantly. But being apart made me realize that being together was not something to take for granted, and without the opportunity to rely on our parents, I truly understood the value of having a sibling.
I went to see Dad at the hospital. It seems like his time is near.
It was the fall of my first year in high school. When my brother stopped by my father's hospital on his way home from his part-time job, he talked to the doctor and told me so. Finally, you mean like that? I felt a lump in my throat. Our father caused us a lot of trouble. His alcoholism was the reason for the divorce from our mother, and though he might be considered a figure of resentment, the thought of losing both parents felt lonely. My brother just nodded silently.
Ryan, could we have done more to save Dad?
He said, tears streaming down his face. I couldn't say anything. I just cried. And then we cried together for a while. But, you know, when Dad and Mom divorced, I was 12 and you were 18. Dad was already in bad shape by then. We were just teenagers, students. It was impossible to save him. I told my brother. He looked at me, surprised.
Ryan, you're more grown up than I am. It's impressive how you see life.
That's what Mom always used to say, Tom and Ryan, live your lives the way you want to. She always said that. I shared with him. And I didn't understand those words from our mother at the time. I felt lost, not knowing how to handle my situation so different from that of my peers. But now, with my brother as my support, I understand the meaning of our mother's words. I can live my life the way I want, right? I muttered.
Of course. Ryan, you can do anything.
He ruffled my hair, and then we both cried. The next day, our father passed away in the hospital. I lost both of my parents. I never imagined such a day would come. Fate can be cruel, I thought. At the crematorium, I was watching the smoke rise from our father's coffin. Dad, don't bother Mom in heaven. I looked up and muttered in my heart.
Hey, Dad, try not to trouble Mom in heaven, okay?
My brother said, gazing at the sky beside me. Oops. I burst out unconsciously.
What's so funny right now?
My brother asked, puzzled. Just thinking. We really are brothers, aren't we?
Of course we are.
I said, realizing we had the same thought. From then on, or rather, my brother continued to support me, living every day as my only family. Despite his busy schedule, he never neglected his studies, graduated from a prestigious university, passed the bar exam, and became a lawyer. Then, when he was 26 and financially stable, he decided to marry his girlfriend, Lisa.
Ryan, when I marry Lisa and we start living together, where will you live? Will you stay with us?
He asked me before getting married. I spit out my drink at that question. No way. Live with my brother and his wife as a newlywed couple. Even I can't do that. That's what I said.
Why not? I'm serious. Lisa also wants us to live together because I'd worry about leaving you alone in this house.
My brother said earnestly. While I thought he was out of his mind, I was touched by how much he cared about me. He was not just a brother, but also had a parental concern for me. But I expressed my desire to try living alone as I was about to turn 20, and reluctantly, he agreed. His hesitation was parent-like.
If you ever find it too hard, just come to my place.
My brother kept telling me that, but when I started living alone, it felt carefree and fun. Then, for my 20th birthday, he gifted me a laptop. Wait a minute. Am I being spoiled? I couldn't rely on my parents during my teenage years, so maybe it's okay to indulge a little now. Eventually, the day of my brother and Lisa's wedding arrived. My brother always supported me. The woman who has been supported him was his bride, Lisa. Lisa was a high school classmate of my brother, and he had a crush on her for the longest time, which finally blossomed into a relationship just before graduation. The love they've nurtured is now moving on to the next stage, marriage. Thinking about it makes me so emotional I could cry. Tom and Lisa wanted a simple wedding, but it turned into a big affair due to Lisa's father's wishes. Lisa's father, a Harvard grad and a top executive at a major company. She said he was bossy, and her family was troubled by his attitude.
Marriage comes with such things. It's about people with different values coming together as a family.
My brother said so. I haven't thought about my own marriage, so I didn't quite get it when he said that.
And now the bride and groom will enter.
At the announcer's call, my brother in a tuxedo and Lisa in a wedding dress made their entrance. My tall and stylish brother, Tom, looked very handsome, and petite, delicate Lisa was adorable in her dress. Next to Lisa was her father. It was my first time seeing him, but he was as stern-looking as my brother had mentioned. After the vows and ring exchange, the room erupted in applause. Next, there were to be speeches from family and friends. My brother had asked me earlier if I wanted to give a speech, but speaking in front of a crowd is not my thing. I can't, sorry, bro.
Yay, I know that's not your thing. No worries. Ken and my friends will give the speeches.
He told me so. And he's my sweet brother. While I was reminiscing, the stern man, the bride's father, took the microphone to give his speech.
Is this on? I am Ken, the father of the bride, Lisa. Thank you all for coming to my daughter's wedding today.
He began his speech that way.
Lisa attended a prestigious private kindergarten and then went on to a prestigious private elementary school.
Her father spoke of her illustrious educational background from kindergarten through college.
Tom, the groom, graduated from a well-known private university and is now a lawyer. His educational background is impeccable, fitting for our family since he is a lawyer.
He spoke highly of my brother, but I was slightly put off by his condescending tone. Yet, given his nature, I suppose it was to be expected.
However, there is one individual of lower education among us today. I won't say who, but having such a person closely related to the groom's family, I am not pleased. I believe some of you understand what I mean. Marriage is about lineage. It's important to continue a lineage of excellent genes. Fortunately, Tom is outstanding, so I have turned a blind eye to his brother's inferiority and approved of the marriage. My generosity should surprise you.
Lisa's father delivered such a speech. The atmosphere in the room turned uneasy during his speech, but then fell eerily silent. I hadn't realized he was talking about me until he mentioned brother at the end, and I was stunned that someone could say such things. Yet Lisa's father continued.
Oops. I seem to have made everyone quiet. I hope you understand that I respected my daughter's wishes and allowed for the freedom to marry. Please continue to enjoy the reception. Well, I would like to tell that incompetent brother to just go home. And with that, I'll conclude my speech.
At that moment, my brother Tom suddenly ran and snatched the microphone from Lisa's father. The room went even quieter. Tom, gripping the microphone and with a stern look, started speaking with a forced smile.
Did I not mention it? Ken, did you forget what I said recently? Maybe you're becoming forgetful, which is worrying. Actually, my brother.
Lisa's father seemed to take offense at my brother's words and retaliated.
You speak so rudely, Tom. Apologize. You two are far from excellent. It shows the inferior blood you carry.
Then, the bride, Lisa, ran to the groom's side and took the microphone.
If Tom is inferior, then I am too. No, wait, I misspoke. Tom is excellent. It's you, Dad. You're the inferior one. You can't even read the room. How pathetic. Everyone here must think so, right?
Lisa said that. The previously silent room suddenly erupted into noise.
That's right. The bride's father's speech was terrible.
Voices from the crowd shouted. Then, an elderly man approached Lisa. He whispered something to her, and then she handed the microphone to him.
I am Lisa's grandfather. This man, Ken, is my son-in-law. Seems like the same situation as today's groom, Tom, and Ken. Haha, let me tell you about something from a quarter century ago.
He said. Lisa's father was visibly shaken.
Wait a minute, please, Howard.
Ken interjected. Lisa's grandfather continued.
This man, Ken, now prides himself as a Harvard grad, but when he wanted to marry my daughter, Mary, he was a man with no title, a pathetic figure. He was not even in university yet when he asked for the marriage. I remember almost collapsing in shock at that time.
The room started buzzing again.
Please stop, Howard.
Lisa's father was frantic, but Lisa's grandfather continued unfazed.
My family was wealthy, and though we had 4 children, my only daughter was particularly dear to me. I was furious back then, wondering why she would marry someone without any educational credentials. But she insisted on marrying Ken, saying she would support him, and they eloped. Looking back, they were young and in love, so perhaps it couldn't be helped. Eventually, I reluctantly agreed to their marriage when things cooled down, but I told Ken something similar to what he said earlier. Ken, I overlooked your inferiority and allowed the marriage. Be grateful for my generosity.
The buzzing crowd fell silent, captivated by Lisa's grandfather's story. Lisa's grandfather said,
Then Ken worked extremely hard and got into Harvard, graduated without any delays, and climbed a corporate ladder at a top firm. About 5 years ago, Ken told me,
Howard, I could persevere because I had my wife by my side.
I believe that's true. He felt inadequate for having started a family so unprepared and worked hard to compensate. But Ken, having graduated from Harvard and succeeded in his career, became arrogant. Isn't that right, Ken?
Lisa's grandfather addressed Ken directly. Ken looked down in silence. Then, as if remembering something, Lisa's grandfather turned to Tom, my brother, and said,
Tom, sorry to interrupt your speech. There was a misunderstanding about your brother Ryan's education, wasn't there? Could you clarify that?
I flinched. Just when the attention had shifted away from me, it was back on me again. I prefer to avoid the spotlight, but I realized I couldn't hide any longer.
Yes, my brother Ryan is actually starting at Harvard this spring. Not only is he hardworking, but he's also naturally smart and skilled in many areas.
The room erupted in cheers.
Congratulations!
Good luck.
Voices and applause came from all around, and I shyly muttered, "Thank you."
What are you saying? That can't be true. Sure, I overheard that talk when Lisa and Tom visited us, but I thought they were joking. I've always seen Tom's brother as a high school graduate and nothing more. I found it disgraceful to have such inferior lineage.
Ken said that. Perhaps Ken only recognizes famous private high schools.
Dad, enough with this inferior talk. It's incredibly rude. I understand from Grandpa's story that you value education because you worked hard for it. But as a person, such comments are unacceptable, right, Mom?
Lisa turned to her mother and said,
Yes, Ken, you've changed. You worked hard to gain status and recognition to ensure we could live happily, but then you became content and arrogant. I see none of the man I once fell in love with. As a daughter of a wealthy family, I can live without you. So if you don't change your ways, I'll leave you. It's divorce then.
Lisa's mother spoke firmly.
Mary, please don't say that.
Ken exclaimed desperately.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the unpleasant scene. We'll handle my parents' marital issues privately. Let's restart and continue enjoying the reception. Next, we have a speech from a friend from the groom's university days.
Ken was led away by Lisa's mother and grandfather, and the reception resumed under Lisa's guidance. The friend's speech lightened the mood, leading to a peaceful and enjoyable celebration. After the wedding, I returned home alone, reflecting on the day. In spring, I'll start college. After losing my mother and living with my alcoholic father, I felt lifeless and couldn't see the purpose of tomorrow. But living and supporting each other with my brother changed me.
Live your life as you wish.
My late mother's words echoed in my heart. I managed to graduate high school. With a high school diploma, I believed I could attend university and do anything. I researched extensively and decided to work hard to get into Harvard.
Going to Harvard is impressive.
I know, but graduating is the real challenge. I've only been accepted. I'm not impressive yet. I'll strive to graduate, and then I'll truly praise myself. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Lisa.
Hello, Ryan. I'm so sorry for my father's rude behavior today. No amount of apologies can cover it. We'll have him apologize to you directly soon.
That's what she said. It's okay. I don't care. Indeed, it was the truth. Being looked down upon for my education wasn't new to me, and I had already experienced people changing their attitude when they found out about Harvard. I find it a waste of time and effort to concern myself with how others judge based on titles or credentials. More than anything, I hope Lisa's parents would find happiness and improve their relationship following these events. A month passed, and the day I moved arrived. My brother came to the airport to see me off, with Lisa joining him.
Ryan going to university. I'm so proud to see you become such a fine young man, but
my brother said, his eyes already welling up with tears. I felt immense gratitude toward my brother, who had been like a parent to me.
If it gets too tough, remember you can always come back.
He told me. No, I've made up my mind, so I'll keep pushing through until I graduate, no matter what. I responded.
Wait a minute, Ryan.
A woman's voice called out.
Mom, why are you here?
Lisa exclaimed in surprise. There stood Lisa's mother, Mary, and her father, Ken. What brings you two here? Are you going on a trip? I asked them that.
Not at all. We came to see you off.
Lisa's mother explained.
Ken insisted on apologizing to Ryan before he left.
She said, out of breath as if she had run all the way.
I'm truly sorry for the disrespectful things I said at the reception. It's unforgivable how late this apology is.
Ken apologized to me. Ken, I'm not bothered by it anymore. I quickly assured him.
I've reflected on my actions since that day. Everything my wife said was right. I was so obsessed with gaining status and fame to make my family happy that I became arrogant. I was a fool. Ryan, I've heard about the struggles you faced at home and the effort you put into getting accepted to university. I want to support your life journey. I hope you absorb knowledge and experiences to lead a rich and fulfilling life. Though Mary and I are your brothers-in-laws, we'd like to be there for you and Tom as parental figures. Please rely on us if you need anything while you're away.
Lisa's father said so.
Maybe I won't be as dependable as your real mom, but students sometimes need guardians, so rely on us, not only just your brother.
Lisa's mother also spoke.
It might seem like Dad changed his tune because Ryan is going to Harvard, but we have assurances. Even if, hypothetically, Ryan quits Harvard within a month, Dad won't look down on him and will continue to support his life.
Lisa said this, and my brother was nodding in agreement next to her. Really? Everyone thinks I'll give up and come back so soon. I jokingly replied.
Sorry, Ryan, that's not what we meant.
Lisa said, her face turning red in embarrassment. It's okay, I understand. Your concern really means a lot to me. I hastily expressed my gratitude. Being looked down upon or not didn't matter to me. Seeing everyone's sincere faces, I felt truly grateful. Thank you all. If ever I find my spirit breaking, I'll rely on you. Knowing I have people like you to turn to gives me strength. I said, bowing.
Ryan, but remember, the first person you should rely on is me.
My brother said, playfully ruffling my hair. Hey, I styled my hair this morning, don't mess it up. I protested, grabbing his hand.
You didn't used to care about that. Getting all fancy, huh? You're trying to impress the ladies at university, aren't you?
That's not it at all. I panicked. Everyone laughed, easing the mood. Then, bidding farewell to everyone, I boarded the plane alone. For the first time, I was leaving my hometown. Maybe my reserved nature, often described as reserved, would change during my university life. Flying above the clouds, I felt a bit closer to my parents in heaven. Mom, watch over me. I'm going to do my best at Harvard. Dad, keep an eye on me. The image of my mother watching over me came to mind, quickly replaced by my brother's face. It's undeniably Tom who has always watched over me. It always has been, and always will be. But when I graduate and return, I hope to be a dependable adult who can support Tom in return. The faces of Lisa's parents briefly crossed my mind, and I again silently vowed to live my life as I wish.
Won't you just go away? Thinking you can come here and get an interview with your low education. Don't you find that presumptuous? You're a million years too early. Get out.
After my mom died when I was in high school, I started working right after graduating. I got fired from my job due to harassment from my boss, and was looked down upon even in job interviews. My life was a mess. Nothing I did seemed to work out. But I kept pushing, never giving up. Education doesn't matter. What's important is having a heart that cares for others. Now, I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. My name is Mike Myers. I live with my much younger sister Emily, and our mom. We had a complicated family situation, growing up in a single-parent home. My dad divorced my mom before I was old enough to remember. I don't remember my father's face, and my mother, wanting to spare us any discomfort, never showed us even a single photo of him. Given we were a single-parent family, Mom would head out to her part-time job in the day and return in the evening. We lived on welfare, but my sister and I always saw how hard our mom worked. She graduated from a prestigious university. And she was also my greatest and proudest private tutor. Since I was in elementary school, I would ask her various questions about my homework, but she never just gave me the answers.
Mom, this math problem is just too hard for me.
All right, Mike, this is how it is.
She never outright gave the answer. This was usual for her. She'd give hints instead, making me figure out the answers myself.
Got it, Mom. The answer is C. Math is really interesting.
Right on. Now that you've got the answer, let's have dinner. Emily must be hungry too.
Mom was good at math and science. Maybe that's why I gradually started liking these subjects too.
Mom, I want to go to a school for science. A state university, of course. Because it's cheaper. Do you think I can make it? I want to get a job and help out. We'll live a better life.
Of course, Mike. I'll support you so you can get into your dream school. Go for it with all you've got.
I guess I was her hope. The last winter of my senior year in high school. It was just before Christmas, and I was studying hard for my dream college.
I want to help too.
That was my sister Emily, watching Mom cleaning the bathroom. Then, suddenly, Emily came into my room.
Mike, come quickly. It's Mom. Mom has.
I ran to the bathroom. Mom had collapsed there. We called an ambulance, but it was too late. She had passed away. The cause being a sudden aneurysm. Without showing any signs, Mom always looked after us warmly. With relatives' help, we managed to hold the funeral. I felt completely listless. Emily, still in her 6th grade, took time to accept the reality.
If you need anything, just ask me,
said my aunt, which was comforting, but she lived far away, and we hardly ever met, so I only managed to thank her. After the funeral, we faced Christmas and the New Year. I thought about the savings Mom had put aside for us, our current and future living conditions, trying to figure out answers on my own. On the first day back at school after winter break, just before leaving the classroom, I told my teacher, I've decided to give up on going to university.
Mike, I'm sorry to hear about your mom passing away, but are you sure you have the grades to get into university? I think you might regret it.
It's okay. I'll work and take care of my 6th grade sister, Emily. That's the best solution I could come up with. I have no regrets.
All right, I got it. I'll tell about this to the career advisor. They can help you. And remember, feel free to discuss anything, no matter how small.
Thank you. After leaving the office, I ran to the back of the gym. Unable to stop my tears over the decision I had made. I came home with red, swollen eyes. Huh, what's that smell? Curry gravy. I'm home.
Oh, Mike, welcome home. I tried making curry gravy for the first time, like Mom used to. It's curried chicken because chicken is cheap.
Really? That's awesome, Emily. But, is it a bit burnt?
Don't worry about it. Let's eat.
The curry gravy was a bit too watery, and the chicken was slightly burnt. It was Emily's first attempt at cooking, in her 6th grade. Emily, I've decided to start working after graduation of high school.
What? But what about university? Weren't you going to study there?
This is the decision I've made after a lot of thought. It'll be okay.
Then I'll go to university.
You got me there. Don't worry. I'll make sure to support you. I was slurping down some watery curry gravy with chicken that was a tad burnt when Emily made this bold statement about her schooling, and everything that had been weighing on my mind just clicked into place. After that, Emily started making lunches for me too. Despite being in 6th grade, she seemed to have accepted reality quite firmly. She was indeed a capable sister. From sudden university aspirations to job hunting. It was tough, but with the help of my classroom teacher and career guidance personnel, I managed to secure a job at a local company. My name is Mike Myers. Starting fresh at the local company, I was notably the youngest there. Especially in my department, everyone was significantly older. At 25, the closest in age to me was my boss, Thomas. Thomas was quite a character. Thomas, looking forward to working with you.
18? Huh? High school grad.
Yes, I graduated from high school.
Is that so? Well, everyone else here has a college degree.
Man, he's coming on strong right from the first day. I did my fair share of job hunting and went straight to work after graduating high school. From then on, I started each day at 5 a.m., leaving home with a breakfast and lunch Emily prepared the day before. I would arrive at work before anyone else, checking the sales reports, cleaning the restroom, and serving coffee to our clients, doing more than anyone as the office errand boy. Though it was menial work, I took care to do it meticulously. And almost daily, I faced the kind of harassment that my boss Thomas seemed to consider normal.
Mike, did you prepare the presentation materials for Company B?
Yes, here it is.
What's this? Did I tell you to make a presentation like this?
I tried to follow your instructions.
It's not about trying. No one's going to look at this. Start over from scratch. What a waste of extra effort. This is why high school grads. I'll report this to the manager.
Thomas is tight with the manager. Observing closely, you can see Thomas seems to be quite good at buttering up the manager. But once the manager leaves, he starts bad-mouthing him to me.
Ugh, that manager, useless. Wish he'd get transferred out soon.
I was always amazed at Thomas's two-faced nature. One lunch break. On a particularly sunny day, I was sitting on the rooftop bench of our office building, spreading out the lunchbox Emily made for me.
Today's lunch is curried chicken. Should be better than before. Don't lose to TJ and keep up the good work.
That was the message from Emily. TJ, no doubt, referred to Thomas. I've told Emily about having such a boss, and she's always been a good listener. The curried chicken has indeed improved, tastier than before. After enjoying my lunch, I cleaned the lunchbox and returned to my desk.
Home smells like curry. Mike, what did you have for lunch?
My sister packed curried chicken for me. It was delicious.
What were you thinking? We have a client meeting next. Planning to meet them smelling like curry. You're so thoughtless. Blood is thicker than water. This is why high school grads. Never mind, I'll go meet the client alone. If we don't land this deal, it's on you.
Fuming, Thomas left alone to meet the client. I felt terribly down, but around 4 p.m., Thomas returned.
Just great. No way we're getting that deal now. Damn it. I'll report to the manager how your sister's strong curry scent ruined it.
Respectfully, Thomas, I accept my part. But please, my sister has nothing to do with this. Retract that statement.
Oh, what now? You a siskin. I'll include that in my report to the manager. He's a siskin, I'll say.
For the first time, I spoke back to my boss, unable to tolerate the constant harassment and remarks about Emily. I was well aware he often reported falsehoods to the boss. I realized I hated Thomas 6 months into the job. The days of enduring continued. Not only was my take-home pay meager, but the much-anticipated bonus turned out to be mere peanuts. A year and 5 months had passed since I started working. As usual, I woke up at 5 a.m., washed my face, and was getting ready for work when Emily woke up.
Morning, Mike. Don't overdo it. You look tired. Are you going to be yelled at by TJ again today?
Well, maybe. Lately, I feel like I've got the hang of dealing with TJ, like it's a boss fight in a game. I've got my strategies down.
If you say so.
Emily's words felt like a premonition. Of course, I had no real strategies for dealing with Thomas. Resigned to another day of scolding, I left for work with reluctance. A 15-minute walk from my house, there's a residential area with a park where my mom, Emily, and I used to play a lot. That's part of my commute route. Sometimes in the morning, I sit on a park bench and think to myself. Then, I see an old lady on the bench suddenly fall forward. Ma'am, are you okay? I rushed to help her, making sure she could breathe easily by propping her up in a comfortable position.
My head hurts.
Head? I gasped, wondering if it could be a sudden aneurysm, like what happened to my mother. This was serious. I quickly pulled out my cell phone, called an ambulance, and hurried to get some water from a vending machine in the park. Ma'am, I've called an ambulance for you. Here, try to drink some water.
Thank you.
She managed to sip a little. She was conscious, but I couldn't take any chances. Having lost my beloved mother, I had learned what to do if someone suddenly collapsed. Always talk to them. Get them into a comfortable position, and provide what's necessary. Though this lady was a stranger, I didn't want her to end up like my mom. The ambulance arrived. The paramedic spoke to her.
Ma'am, are you okay?
She was just out for a walk and had no ID or cell phone on her. Farts of work crossed my mind, but people come first. I sent a message to my work email address explaining the situation and decided to accompany the old lady. May I ride along?
We appreciate it. Please go ahead.
We got to the emergency room. She was given an IV and an oxygen mask and transported on a gurney. While the doctors were checking her, I called my office directly to explain my tardiness, as the email seemed insufficient. A few hours later, the doctor who attended to her came out.
It's dehydration. We've had a heat wave recently. She'll need to be hospitalized for 3 to 4 days, but she's conscious and stable now and can talk. I must thank you for calling the ambulance and accompanying her. That was brave.
It's okay, I'm glad I could help.
The lady wants to speak with you. Will you see her?
I'll just check on her real quick, and then head out. I visited the old lady in her room.
Thank you, dear. You've probably added some time to this old lady's life. In your suit, you must be off to work. What's your name?
Mike Myers.
I'll remember that. Thank you, truly.
I quickly took a taxi from the station near the park and rushed to the office. I arrived before noon at 11:40 a.m. Good morning. I'm terribly sorry for being so late. I knew it already, but Thomas was furious.
Mike, you were late because you were helping some old lady you don't even know. Do you realize what day it is?
Yes, today we have the presentation with Company C in the afternoon. I prepared the presentation materials last night at home. Here, I have them right here.
Hey, which is more important to you? Some old lady or the presentation with Company C?
You know, I thought saving a life was the priority.
Playing the hero. Ha! You're fired.
What?
You weighed helping an old lady against a business deal and chose the former. We don't need a salesperson like that. The president and the manager are waiting for you in the reception room to discuss your heroic saga.
Right after arriving at work, I went to the reception room. Just as Thomas said, I was told I was fired by the president and the manager. No matter how much I explained, it was futile. Thomas and the manager were in cahoots, always looking to trip me up. There was no doubt that they had presented their version of events to the president. That day, I went home in tears, frustrated by the unfair dismissal. I'm home.
Welcome back. Today I made your favorite curry. Wait, what's wrong? Did Thomas fire you?
What?
It's all over your face. You've always been easy to read.
There's nothing scarier than a woman's intuition. I told Emily about the circumstances and reasons for my dismissal. She fully understood and said,
Every cloud has a silver lining, right? We learned that in English class today. You did a good thing by saving a life. And if that's the decision you made, I support you, my kind brother Mike.
Every cloud has a silver lining, huh? Emily's growth and intuition as a person never cease to amaze me. I'm constantly encouraged by her. The curried chicken I had the next morning, with its spices spreading in my mouth, tasted better than ever. At the end of the month, I left the company. I'm going to be job hunting, but since I'll have some free time, teach me how to make your special curried chicken. I went to the supermarket to buy ingredients. I wanted to sit on the park bench I used to pass on my way to work and think about what to do next. When I entered the park, the bench was already taken. Not today, then. Oh well, let's head back. Just as I was about to leave, someone called out,
Mike.
Huh? It was the old lady I had helped the other day. She came over here and started talking to me. We sat on the bench together, chatting about recent events at a leisurely pace. The old lady, now fully recovered, seemed even more interested in me. Can she really be asking all these questions? She asked about various things, to my surprise. As we talked, I accidentally let slip that I had been fired from my job.
I know the president of Company D.
Company D, the well-known one locally.
If you're free, why not try applying there? I'll speak to the president I know.
Apply to Company D, that famous trading company. There's no way a high school grad like me could manage that. What is this lady talking about? I gently excused myself, trying not to make the situation awkward. Well, ma'am, I'm glad you're feeling better. I'll give Company D a token try. 3 weeks later, it was the interview day with Company D. I had studied up on the company, doing the bare minimum preparation. Wow, this is Company D. Their building was a 200-meter tall skyscraper. On the first floor, there were corner shops, restaurants, and a meeting area for business discussions, making me feel out of place all over again. Well, it's just a token application anyway. Getting turned away at the door is the most likely outcome. I told the receptionist my purpose. Hi, I'm here for an interview today. My name is Mike Myers. 2 minutes later, a male interviewer came down.
Mike Myers, right? I'm Daniel, and I'll be conducting your interview. Please follow me.
We took the elevator to the meeting room. It was on the 10th floor. During the ride, Daniel made friendly small talk with me.
Please have a seat here, and feel free to be ease.
Thank you. It seemed he had already noticed how tense I was.
May I take a look at your resume?
Sure, it's nothing impressive, but please go ahead. Upon opening my resume, Daniel's expression seemed to fall.
So, Mike, you entered the workforce right after high school.
Yes, due to circumstances, I started working immediately.
Well, it's tough for a high school grad here. I wonder if there's been some mistake. Did you see the corner shops on the first floor? Maybe you got the interviews mixed up, thinking it was for that.
No, I'm certain it's an interview with your company.
It's going to be difficult to get hired here. Do you understand your situation?
I do. There are many high school grads who work admirably. Is a college degree always necessary?
Tisk, so annoying.
Daniel put the resume back in the envelope and handed it to me dismissively.
Why don't you just leave? Do you think it's right for a low-educated fool like you to come here for an interview? Your century's too early. Get out.
Just as I was being yelled at, the doorknob turned. Oh, ma'am. This was my first exclamation. The old lady I had helped was there in a suit, and another man stood beside her.
Oh, Paul. How are you today?
I heard you telling Mike here to leave. Seems like you're the one who should be leaving.
Me.
That's enough for today. Head out and cool off.
From the conversation, I realized the man called Paul was the president of Company D.
Paul, Grace, what's going on?
I recommended Mike for the position. Was there a problem with that?
No, not at all.
Don't judge people by their education. What kind of person are you? Just leave.
Daniel turned pale and left the room.
Sorry for the surprise. You see, the acquaintance president is my husband.
I want to thank you for helping my wife when she fell.
The old lady continued.
I had to say that, or you wouldn't have applied here. When we talked on the park bench, I hoped you would join us. We wanted someone like you.
The old lady I had helped turned out to be the wife of the renowned president of Company D, and the HR director there herself, named Grace Walker. She had a keen eye for people. Our meeting with the president and HR director felt more like a casual chat than an interview. Every cloud has a silver lining. I was officially hired in the sales department of Company D. It felt like a dream. The company culture was entirely different, and the environment was much more comfortable for me. Sometimes I ran into Grace at the entrance.
Mike, how's it going? Getting used to the job.
Yes, Mrs. Walker. I'm enjoying it and being myself.
Hey, just call me Grace.
5 years passed. My income stabilized, and I could plan for the future. Emily was now in her senior year of high school. Her experience and age reflected in the lunches she made. I was always looking forward to unwrapping and enjoying them daily. Today's lunch includes a star-shaped omelet. What does this mean? After lunch, the president called me in. The old lady, no, the HR director was there too.
Mike, there's an upcoming presentation event with participation from small to large companies. How about you give it a try?
Me.
Your presentation skills have untapped potential. I threw in a good word for you with the president again. I'm sure you'll do great.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. I'd love to take the opportunity. I'll do my best.
Hey, you can call me Grace, you know?
The star mark in the lunches Emily made, that's what it meant. A month later, fully prepared, I went to the presentation venue. It was crowded, but I felt surprisingly calm. Wait, isn't that? It was Thomas, my former boss. He was also at the presentation. Our eyes met, and he quickly noticed me and glared. I see, Thomas is desperate too, but I have my own path to follow. I can't lose. Undaunted, I gave the presentation my way. In the end, I secured a contract with one of the biggest corporations. I had outperformed Thomas, a college graduate. Luck is part of skill. Joining Company D was fortunate, but beyond luck, I dedicated myself to thoughtful action. I never look down on anyone. I don't belittle people. The president and HR director had been watching my daily conduct. The person overseeing is really paying attention to the details. Both were thrilled with the contract I secured with a large corporation. I was promoted to sales director at an unprecedented speed. Now, I'm in a position to lead people. When teaching others, I never give easy answers. I'm dropping hints and letting them figure out the answers themselves. Just like my late mother taught me. The following year, Emily was accepted into the State University A, our mother's alma mater. She's a bit of a prophet with extraordinary intuition. My mysterious yet only beloved sister. As her brother, I want to watch over her gently until she graduates. I was fired from the company I had worked at for years for unreasonable reasons. After that, I got a job interview through a friend's referral. But during the interview,
You know, we don't hire bottom-of-the-barrel high school dropouts.
the interviewer was looking down on me while trying to suppress laughter. Panic-stricken and unable to stop the sweat on my palms, I clenched my fists, endured, and left the interview room.
Excuse me, please come back to the interview room immediately.
Stopped suddenly by the receptionist, I was confused but returned to the room and was fixated on a man. Later, I found myself crying my heart out for the first time in my life because of what this man said. My name is Jake Morrison. When I was about to start elementary school, my parents died in an accident. At that time, my sister Lily was just 2 years old. It was too early a goodbye. I was sad, but I couldn't think of anything. And I couldn't explain to little Lily that our parents were suddenly gone. However, I vaguely understood that I had to be strong because I was the only family left to protect her. After that, Lily and I were taken care of by relatives on our mother's side. It was the furthest place from where we lived. There were other relatives in the place we were born and raised, but it was considered kinder to start anew elsewhere than to continue living locally and be reminded of our parents. There was also a cousin my age in that home, so there was hope that we could spend time like siblings. We left with just a few belongings and only one picture of our parents. It marked the start of our new life, but initially, Lily's night crying was frequent. Moreover, the aunt of my relative gave up after just a few days. So, I had no choice but to soothe her, often falling asleep with her in my arms throughout the night. Gradually, my cousin began to distance himself from us.
You're just a freeloader. Be grateful. I don't want to be associated with someone like you at school, so don't talk to me.
My cousin, who was normal at home, looked down on me at school.
Okay, got it.
I said that, determined to endure until I could graduate from compulsory education. I planned to work right after graduation to support Lily and myself, focusing intensely on my studies. Time passed, and I graduated from high school safely. I was 18 years old then, and Lily was 14. On graduation day, I visited the house of an old man I used to stop by on my way home from school to say goodbye. This old man was Frank Johnson with a very intimidating face. One day when I was a young boy in elementary school, I found a lost boy on my way home, who turned out to be Frank's grandson. After that, I saw him often in the park, and our conversations increased. I could talk to Frank, so I shared my background with him. Frank usually had a stern face, but he was cheerful and really funny when he talked. At first, he listened to my story with a frown, but then he patted my head and said, "After you graduate high school, come work at my company. Keep up your studies until then." I remember his hand being very warm. I had always felt cared for by him, so on graduation day, eager to show him the small paper flower up into my chest badge and my diploma, I ran as fast as I could. Frank waited for me in front of his house, timing it with my walk home from school. When I presented my diploma, Frank grinned, showing his teeth, and ruffled my hair vigorously.
All right, Jake, come to my company starting tomorrow. I'll lend you a company apartment, so you and Lily can live there.
I thanked him and nodded repeatedly. By that time, Lily and I had hardly spoken to the family we lived with, except at meals, and slept huddled together in a small room. Since we had few belongings, I packed up our stuff after the morning graduation ceremony and prepared our new home before Lily got out of school. I waited for her on the way home from school and then took her to thank the relatives. The cousin wasn't there. Not that we had anything to say to each other. The relatives didn't try to stop us from leaving to live on our own.
You could have stayed. It's a shame, but good luck.
My aunt said, her usually stern face showing a slight smile. And as we left, I heard her quietly say, "Finally they've gone." I knew we were the reason, but I was still grateful. I deeply expressed my sincerity and headed to our new home for the two of us. After that, I worked hard. Frank acted as a guardian, so Lily could continue at the same school without transferring. That allowed me to focus on my job. Lily studied cooking at home and made meals for me every day. We both tried our best. 15 years passed, and I turned 33. By then, Lily had moved out when she got a job, so apart from sending money and occasional updates, we didn't interact much. One day, I went to work as usual, but Frank was not there. The office was in chaos, and I couldn't grasp what was happening until a phone call left me frozen. Frank had died in a car accident, I learned from his wife's call. I rushed to the hospital, but it seemed everything had progressed since it happened the night before. After offering my condolences to his wife, I left the hospital without being able to do anything. I was told it was better not to see Frank's last face, so I never did. For a while, I was in a daze. But I couldn't quit my job, so I returned to work after a week. The atmosphere at the company felt different, and the new president, who took over, was very unreasonable. Maybe he didn't like that I, a high school grad, had been favored by the previous president, as he started assigning me only menial tasks despite my hard work on the front lines before. I felt like my shifts were gradually being reduced until one day my name was completely off the schedule. The president told me, "You don't need to come back," and I was effectively kicked out of both the company and the company housing. Fortunately, I had savings from all the work I had done. Plus, I hadn't touched the life insurance money from my parents, saving it for when Lily got married. I quickly rented a small apartment and started looking for a new job. But finding another job was tough. Being a high school grad, I got cut at the resume screening stage. Even the staff at the employment office started recognizing me. Wondering what to do next, I calmed my mind with a coffee at a cafe on a weekday when my usually silent phone rang. It was a call from an old friend, Jake Thomas. Since my elementary school wasn't large, with only about 2 classes per grade, I knew almost everyone by face. Jake Thomas and I were especially close, and he, having many friends across different grades, took me to various places. Since we both had the same first name, to avoid confusion, everyone, including me, called him by his initials, JD. When we were together, people gathered around us, and even our little mishaps became trends. Together, we felt unstoppable. JD kept looking out for me even after we entered high school, but gradually, we lost contact after graduation. Why now, after all this time? Tentatively, I answered the phone. From the earpiece came a familiar, cheerful voice.
"Long time, no see. How've you been?"
JD went to a high school out of state after graduating, which led him to attend college there too. So, he rarely came back home, but recently he returned and called to catch up over drinks. With nothing much to do, I eagerly accepted, and we agreed to meet that night at a pub near the station. It had been a while since I had a leisurely meal with someone, so I felt unusually excited and dressed in my most stylish outfit. At the agreed time, I arrived to find JT already seated, having started drinking.
"Jake, you've aged a bit, haven't you?"
JT noticed me, set down his glass, and smiled. I thought it wasn't the best opening line, but it eased my tension, leading to a lively trip down memory lane.
"Jake, are you still working at that company?"
JD asked about my recent life as if he just remembered. Honestly, I wanted to avoid heavy topics and didn't have the courage to speak about Frank myself. Sensing my hesitation, JD kindly said,
"It was really unfortunate about Frank."
I looked at JD in surprise.
"I heard from Lily. You know, she and my sister were close. So she thought you must be sad and wanted to cheer you up. Jake, you've always been so dedicated."
I quit the job, you know, being a high school grad and all, I'm not too sharp. It seemed I didn't fit with the new president's agenda. JD looked at me with a slightly apologetic, complex smile, but then became serious and said,
"I have a proposition for you, Jake. If you're interested, why don't you interview at this company?"
Seeing me puzzled, He pulled out a small piece of paper hurriedly torn from the back of an ad from his pocket. The paper had only an address and contact information. JD said he'd set up an interview for me too, since then's a group interview next Monday. I was so tired from my stalled job hunt that I decided to lean on JD's kindness. That night, I drank a bit too much. But it had been a while since I had laughed over trivial stories. After a light farewell with JD, promising to drink again, I got home past 2 a.m. I felt like I was back in my school days, all excited, and I think I slept really well that night, for the first time in ages. On the day of the interview next week, I donned my slightly worn interview suit and headed to the specified location. The building I found, following the map, was impressively large. Feeling uncertain if this was really the place, I checked with the receptionist, who confirmed my interview was scheduled. In the meeting room, there were a few others, presumably there for the interview. With no conversation, we sat waiting nervously, and right on time, two guys walked in. Feeling nervous for my first interview in a while, it progressed better than expected. The man seated in the center had a badge that read, HR Director, Max. One of the three chairs appeared to be empty. Since there was a drink on the seat, I didn't pay much attention, assuming someone was just temporarily absent. The interviewers sat down, alternating between looking at our resumes and our faces, jotting down notes and asking questions. It seemed like a typical group interview. Waiting for my turn made me more nervous, and as it drew closer, I could hear my heartbeat in my throat. But when it was my turn, Max, who had been reading my resume, gradually looked more troubled. Then, he slowly let go of the resume. It fluttered to the floor.
You know, we don't hire high school dropouts,
Max said, seemingly trying to hold back a laugh. Instantly, I felt my face get hot. And then, Max began to put away the documents. It seemed my high school grad status was indeed an insurmountable issue. I couldn't stop the sweat on my palms. I clenched my fists and endured, but the interviewers, looking dismayed, seemed to have no intention of proceeding further. It was frustrating, but I also felt it was a waste of time to stay any longer. I had wasted my old friend's kindness. Thinking I should apologize over the phone and not bother him anymore, I stood up in the middle of the interview to express my gratitude. Thank you for your time. As I walked to the door, I thought I heard some laughter behind me. Before the door fully closed, the interview seemed to move on to the next person. My mind was in turmoil. Overwhelmed with embarrassment and helplessness, I just wanted to get away from there, so I quickly headed towards the entrance. But as I reached the automatic doors past the reception, a receptionist hurriedly stopped me from behind.
Excuse me, Mr. Jake Morrison, please come back to the interview room immediately.
I was confused. Was it wrong to leave the interview midway? I speculated but returned to the interview room immediately, partly because the receptionist looked a bit pale, and I felt sorry for her. Back in the room, one man was furiously asking,
Hey, where's Jake?
The high school dropout. We sent him away because he's nowhere near the level of this company. It's surprising he even got to this interview.
What are you saying? His salary was supposed to be $1 million. I offered it myself.
What? $1 million? Is there some mistake? But he's just a dropout.
Jake, me, $1 million. Shocked at the bizarre situation, I wondered if I was in the wrong room until I saw the man's build. JD. His badge read, CEO Jake Thomas. It took a moment to grasp the situation, but JD rushed over as soon as he saw me. And he explained loudly enough for everyone to hear.
Everyone, please listen.
JD put his hand on my shoulder, took a deep breath, and said,
The Jake here is an old friend from my elementary school days. He could only finish up to high school for a reason. He was smarter than me and could have been recommended for further studies. But he chose to work to support his sister, striving and working hard to get here. And he's not someone who betrays others. He's the only man I truly trust and respect.
With that, he looked at Max. Max quickly averted his eyes.
High school dropout. High school dropout. When did this company start judging people by their education? I never gave such a lowbrow directive. Right, Max? I've decided to work only with people I can trust, regardless of their education. You get what I'm saying, don't you?
I'm sorry.
JD continued, explaining that he founded the company.
I started this company filled with hope, with a man I thought was my best friend during college. But in the end, he just took the information and ran. It's shameful being betrayed by someone I trusted.
Oh my gosh. I felt like I was seeing JD's sad face for the first time.
It reminded me that I wanted to work with people I could trust, good friends. The reason I originally felt that way was because of Jake. The only person I'd really wanted to work with from the bottom of my heart was Jake. I had given up because Jake had family circumstances that made it impossible. But after hearing about Jake's situation from his sister, I thought now was the time. Hey, Jake, won't you help me grow this company? I need your strength.
He trusted me immensely but mentioned that as a company rule, we had to go through the interview process. He also said he cared for me like family. Before I knew it, I found myself staring at JD, tears streaming down my face. Even after my parents and Frank were gone, I never cried. Once the tears started flowing, all the pent-up emotions came rushing out, and there was a fear that I might completely break down.
When we grow up, we're going to build a huge company like a maze, right?
JD's words brought back buried memories. Back in elementary school, during recess, doodling in our notebooks, JD and I played around. In the corner of JD's notebook, filled with drawings of legendary swords and mythical treasure chests, I drew an intricate maze. I remembered how JD praised my maze, and then he added monsters and treasure chests to it. In the large space near the goal on our drawing, we unanimously wrote Boss's Room and laughed together. I nodded, my face filled with shame. The interviewers were wide-eyed, watching us. My potential role as the vice president and the president's friend seemed to make them reconsider their treatment of me.
We will inform you of the decision later,
JD said, ending the interview abruptly and gesturing for me to follow him by pulling at my sleeve. In a daze, I was led to a room marked with a childlike aluminum plate reading Boss's Room next to the door. I recognized the handwriting. Seeing that, I just let loose and burst out laughing loudly. JD was also laughing along, caught up in the moment. One of the interviewers, HR manager Max was later found to have been selecting candidates based on personal likes and dislikes. It seemed like he was blowing off steam, maybe because he'd seen people with exceptional circumstances like high school dropouts get embarrassed and rejected during interviews despite making a good impression. It also came out that he was unfairly favoring certain female employees, leading to his dismissal for being interest-worthy. Later, I officially became the vice president, declaring that JD and I would elevate the company together revived our friendship from school days. Our company, extending its network from peers to acquaintances, grew rapidly. One day, when new ventures were taking off, JD said,
"Jake, there's something I want to discuss."
He called me to the usual pub near the station. Beside JD sat Lily. "What's going on?" I blurted out unexpectedly, but Lily, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, had grown up beautifully. She slightly resembled the gentle expression of our mother, a faint memory I had. Though I couldn't say this to Lily, who didn't remember our parents' faces. JD, usually so composed, seemed oddly nervous, which made me feel an exquisite discomfort, but that quickly turned into certainty.
"I'm dating Lily with the intention of getting married. I want to marry her, so I hope you'll approve of that,"
JD said with earnest eyes. My vision blurred, and I couldn't clearly see their faces. "So, I can entrust the most important person to the most trustworthy man I know." I immediately thought there was no reason to object. I consented right away, patted the now grown-up Lily's head, and smiled, saying how happy I was for her. Later, I gave them the inheritance left by our parents as Lily's wedding fund. Both Lily and JD were in tears. Afterward, I received a wedding invitation from them. This time, I took my wrinkled suit to the cleaners. On the wedding day, wearing that suit, Lily told me I looked cool, which made me smile. I wondered if I should have bought a more expensive suit. Lily was incredibly beautiful. The days when I walked around our small room carrying a crying Lily on my back, unable to sleep at night, felt like a distant past. At Lily's wedding, I fell in love for the first time with one of her friends. I plan to slowly nurture this new love. After the wedding, I returned home and sat in front of the family picture. I talked to my parents' faded photographs. "I did it. I married off Lily. With the money you left behind, I could give her a beautiful wedding. Thank you." Since then, I seem to have become a bit more tearful. The parents in the photo seem to be smiling a bit. I've learned two things in life from this experience. One is to cherish the people I meet. It sounds simple, but it's hard to grasp. Life has many crossroads. And at each one, I've met someone who has helped guide my choices. So, I believe every encounter has meaning. As they've all been connected to pivotal moments in my life, I'm grateful to these people and want to cherish them always. The other is to trust my decisions. Sure, I might be betrayed sometimes, but I believe it's my continued faith and happiness that has brought me to this moment. I've been doing it that way, and I'll keep doing it that way in the future. If I decide to be happy, I'm already on that path. I trust myself to keep going forward.
Sitting at the bar counter of my usual spot, I was sipping my regular whiskey on the rocks when I suddenly heard a familiar voice behind me.
Wait, no way. Why are you here?
I turned around with a feeling of disgust as intense as the screeching sound made by my nails on the glass. It was my ex-wife, Linda. Linda, what about you? Why are you here? I responded.
Why? I like the vibe of this bar. It's a bit pricey, but my husband earns well, so the higher price suits us. You, on the other hand, weren't making much, so aren't you stretching yourself thin by coming here? Trying too hard to look good, aren't you? Or did you decide to splurge what little money you have today? Poor thing. I guess I could buy you a drink out of pity?
Linda stood there, looking down at me sitting in my chair, and went on talking non-stop.
Wearing such a cheap shirt, you really look terrible.
Hearing that, I was annoyed, though I had intended not to care about what Linda said. But getting angry would only play into her hands, so I kept my cool. Please just leave me alone and move quickly to another table. Just when I was enjoying my drink, it all went downhill. To my dismay, Linda decided to sit right next to me.
How's it going? You're still slaving away at that run-down little salon, aren't you? Stuck with a pitiful salary for life. Meanwhile, my husband. He's about to be promoted to department head. Unlike you, he's actually competent. How come there's such a big difference between brothers? Leaving you was definitely the right choice.
Linda rattled on with her sarcasm. Being so loaded with snide remarks almost felt like a twisted form of hospitality. Maybe this was her way of providing entertainment. Or maybe not. I shook my head, snapping out of it, and reminded myself that my ex-wife, Linda, was the worst. After all, she seduced my brother while married to me, then divorced me to marry him. The fact that such a terrible person exists, not just in soap operas but in real life, still sends shivers down my spine. Wanting to avoid further engagement, I decided to keep my responses neutral. So Mike is getting ahead. Good for him, I told Linda.
Pathetic, aren't you?
Linda said, continuing to look down on me. Then Mary, a regular at the bar, who had been silently listening to our conversation, spoke up. Mary and I often met at this bar and had shared stories with each other.
Hey, I don't know what your relationship with Kevin is, but you sure talk big, don't you? It's quite unpleasant to listen to. I don't know who you think you are, but do you even know anything about him, the guy sitting here?
I quickly said to her, Mary, it's okay. No need to say anything more. Then Mary, with a triumphant look, tilting her wine glass, said to me,
You should stand up for yourself, Kevin. Just take down this superficial, nasty woman with a few words.
Hearing this, Linda raised her voice.
What? Who does this lady think she is? So rude to talk like that when we've just met. Outsiders should keep their mouths shut.
But ignoring Linda's protest, Mary continued.
Rude? That's laughable coming from you. You're far more offensive. Well, take a good look with those murky eyes of yours. Hey, bartender, show this rude woman the magazine from earlier.
Mary called out to the bartender.
The magazine from earlier, right. Here you go.
The bartender placed an international edition of the globally famous fashion magazine Beauty Woman, abbreviated as BW, on the counter where the three of us were seated.
What is this?
Linda said, flustered as she looked at the magazine cover. My name is Kevin O'Connor. I grew up in a suburb just outside of Manhattan, in a family of 4, my father, mother, older brother, and myself. My father, who had been good at drawing since childhood, aimed for art college after high school, but gave up after failing the entrance exam 3 times. After those 3 failed attempts, he entered the workforce straight from high school and struggled to find a well-paying job. My mother, sheltered and naive, married my father by chance and resented his lack of higher education as they lived in poverty. Thanks to that, my brother Mike and I were constantly told by our mother that getting into a high-ranking school was the most important thing in life. Mike took that to heart, diligently studied amidst busy club activities during middle school, and went on to a prestigious private high school. He maintained high grades in high school, faced college entrance exams, and graduated from a renowned university. However, I was not influenced by my mother or brother. Though my dad gave up on art school, he spent his weekends painting as a hobby and attending solo exhibitions of his artist friends. I was shaped by such influences from my father.
I'm heading to the gallery in Chelsea to look at some paintings. Wanna come along?
He often invited me like this on Sundays. And while my brother Mike showed no interest, I was keen on art and frequently joined him on these outings. Dad knew many in the art scene, providing me with plenty of opportunities to meet artists as a child. Influenced by this, I decided to become a hairstylist. So after high school, I didn't go to college but enrolled in a beauty trade school instead. Most of my peers went on to high school, and I did consider it. Not that I didn't. The idea of following my mom's advice to graduate from a good college and land a stable corporate job seemed fine too. But since Mike was already pursuing that path, I felt I didn't need to, and there was another reason. When I was in 9th grade, I overheard my mother one night talking to my father. How are we going to manage Kevin's school expenses? We're already struggling with Mike's tuition and tutoring fees. Feeling guilty for eavesdropping, that conversation clinched my decision that I didn't need to go to college. Sure, beauty school cost money, but I managed by working part-time to cover my tuition and pocket money. I enjoyed studying beauty and felt it suited me well. So, I never doubted that I was living a successful life. And at 18, I started working as an apprentice hairstylist. Although the pay was low, I found it fulfilling. 2 years into my career, I was recognized as a hairstylist and moved out to live on my own. Life was tough, but I could make ends meet by keeping my expenses low. Then, at the elementary school reunion when I turned 20 years old, a turning point arrived for me.
It's been a while. Kevin?
That was Lindy Emerson, a classmate from elementary and middle school, as she approached me. I didn't remember her. No surprise there. Despite attending the same elementary and middle school, we had only been in the same class once. That was when she transferred in during the spring semester of 3rd grade, and we were only in the same class then. So, we were classmates for just 1 semester.
Man, it's such a shock to be forgotten by Kevin.
Linda said, making me feel a bit guilty. At 20, she was very beautiful, and since my life was all work with no time for romance, I admit she caught my attention. She asked for my contact, followed up with calls, and even asked me out. So before I knew it, we were dating. She had a strong desire to get married, and after some thought, we tied the knot at 23. Being a hairstylist in a small suburban salon, I wasn't exactly well off financially. So, we couldn't have a big wedding, nor could we afford a lavish life after marriage. I thought it would be better to wait until my income improved, but Lindy insisted. I want to get married now. So, I made up my mind. We couldn't afford a rich lifestyle yet, but I decided to work hard to gradually increase our income. After all, it wasn't just my life anymore. I had a family now. Since our marriage, I dedicated even more time to studying about beauty whenever I could. The owner of the salon even discussed a promotion to manager with me, but I was constantly pondering whether it was better to take the promotion or change my workplace for further career advancement. That was when it happened. A year after getting married,
Sorry, I need to talk.
I got a message on my phone from my brother Mike. He usually doesn't contact me much. What's this about? I texted back, "What's up?" and he replied wanting to meet. So we decided to catch up after work the next day. When I arrived at the cafe we agreed to meet at, it wasn't just Mike waiting there, but oddly, my wife Linda was also there sitting next to him. I thought I was here to talk to Mike. Why is Linda here? I asked, completely puzzled, and sat across from Mike and Linda.
I'm really sorry, Kevin.
Mike said, apologizing deeply to me. Linda was silent, saying nothing. What are you sorry about? I felt an odd tension in the air, and even the coffee I drank lost its taste.
It's cruel to make my sweetie Mike say it, so I'll tell you myself.
Linda spoke up. I couldn't believe my ears. Linda doesn't even call me sweetie or anything. But now, she called him Sweetie Mike.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I want to divorce you and be with Mike.
Linda said assertively. I was completely lost for words. I don't understand what you're saying. That was all I could manage to say.
I've grown to dislike our married life, and I've fallen in love with Mike.
Linda said, Linda, do you realize what you're saying? You married me, remember? Falling for my brother. Doesn't that seem wrong to you? How did this even happen? I was confused about who was wrong, what was wrong, and why it was all happening.
I know it's wrong to be with my brother's wife, but I was moved by Linda's passion.
Mike told me. At that moment, something snapped in my mind. I had resolved to protect my wife as family once we married, and though I was still figuring things out, I was working towards becoming better. But Linda had decided on her own to divorce me and involve my brother. Now that I think about it, she often came home late, but I worked late too and thought she was just busy with her job. Was she actually meeting with my brother? I don't know how or why it all happened, and at this point, I didn't even want to know. Here they were, my brother and my wife, sitting together, saying the same thing. And that was the reality. Fine, do as you like. Disgusted, I left the cafe. However, Linda and I lived in the same house, so when I got home, she arrived shortly after. Amid the awkward silence, I finally said to her, "If you had issues with me, I wish you would have told me."
I like you as a person, Kevin, but Mike has a higher education and earns more?
Hearing that from Linda, I trembled with rage. But knowing that some women prioritize education and income, I resigned myself to it and tried to calm down. Sorry for not earning more, but you didn't have to go about it this way, right? I said, trying my best to stay composed. However, Linda just said, "I'm not the bad one here," and went to her room. Watching her walk away, I truly thought, I don't care anymore. Even if I was at fault for not being more successful, wanting to remarry my brother was just wrong. And if Linda only sees Mike as a highly educated and hiring man, it seems like she's just using him for convenience. I thought Mike was crazy to consider being with his brother's wife, but he was always the earnest and hard-working type. Sure, he can be stubborn and strong-willed because of his earnest nature. I worried that Mike was being manipulated by Linda. "Mike, think it over again. She said she wants to marry you because you're highly educated and earn a lot. If she doesn't truly love you, I'm worried about your future." I sent that message to Mike that night, but the reply I got was,
"It's uncool to say things like that just because you want to keep Linda."
I was disappointed. I had no lingering feelings for Linda. Rather, I questioned her character. I just wanted to warn my brother so he wouldn't be harmed. But it's a decision each adult must make for themselves, so I realized I couldn't say anything more to Mike. And so, without asking for any alimony, I agreed to the divorce. I felt neither loneliness nor regret, but rather a sense of relief. I told both my parents and Linda's parents, "We've talked it over and agreed on everything, so there's no need to worry." After the divorce was finalized, I never saw Mike and Linda again. I made sure to visit my parents when they weren't around to avoid any encounters. 3 years passed. By that time, I hardly thought about my ex-wife and brother. The initial period post-divorce was tough, filled with moments of deep sadness, but not because of losing Linda. Rather, the memory of my wife and brother wanting to marry each other during our marriage made me distrustful of people for a while. However, time is the greatest healer, and over those 3 years, my wounds healed, and the flashback stopped. I was living my days peacefully and happily. Then one day, after work, I stopped by my regular bar. Little did I know something unbelievable was about to happen. While drinking my usual whiskey on the rocks at the counter, I suddenly heard a familiar voice behind me.
Wait, what? Why are you here?
I turned around, feeling as much disgust as the screech of nails on glass. It was my ex-wife, Linda. "Linda, what about you? Why are you here?" I responded,
Well, I like the ambience here. It's a bit pricey, but my husband earns well, so it suits us. You, on the other hand, must be stretching your budget to be here, right? You're trying too hard to impress, huh? Or did you come here today to blow all your money? Poor thing. I could buy you a drink if you really want.
Linda said, standing and looking down on me as I sat in my chair, rattling on by herself. I didn't respond because arguing would just be playing into your hands, so I quietly listened to her. Undeterred, Linda continued,
Wearing such a cheap shirt, you really look awful.
Hearing this, I tried not to let Linda's words get to me, but I couldn't help feeling a bit irritated. However, getting angry would just be what you wanted, so I stayed calm. I just wanted her to leave me alone and move to another table. I was enjoying my drink until this. What a waste! Then, unbelievably, Linda sat down next to me.
2 glasses of the cassis and orange, please?
Linda ordered, and in about 3 minutes, 2 glasses of the cassis and orange were placed in front of us with a thud.
Here you go.
I nearly fell off my chair as Linda handed me one of the casses in orange. Wait, this is for me? Surprised, I asked, and Linda said, of course. You don't think I drink two at the same time, do you? I'm not a fan of sweet drinks. Mixing sweet liquor with sweet juice really doesn't make sense to me. I'm really in a bind, but arguing with Linda seemed like a hassle. So I just said thanks and took the glass with a cloudy drink.
How's it going? Still slaving away at that run-down little salon. Living on a meager salary for life is just pitiful. On the other hand, my husband. He's about to become a department head. Unlike you, he's competent. How can there be such a difference between brothers sharing the same blood? Leaving you was definitely the right move.
Linda rattled on by herself, packing her speech with sarcasm. Faced with such an abundance of snide remarks, I almost wondered if this was her twisted way of being hospitable. Maybe this was Linda's unique way of entertaining me. Or perhaps not. I shook my head, coming back to my senses, and remembered that my ex-wife was the worst. After all, Linda, while married to me, had seduced my brother and then divorced me to remarry him. The fact that such an awful person exists, not just in fiction but in reality, still sends shivers down my spine. Determined not to get involved anymore, I decided to keep my responses non-committal. Mike is getting promoted, huh? Congratulations, I said to Linda.
Huh? Pathetic little brother?
Linda continued to look down on me with disdain. Then Mary, who had been silently listening to our conversation next to us, spoke up. Mary and I often met in this bar and would chat.
Hey you, I don't know what your relationship with Kevin is, but you sure speak arrogantly, don't you? It's quite unpleasant to listen to. I don't know who you think you are, but do you even know anything about him, the guy sitting here?
I hurriedly said to Mary. Mary, it's okay. No need to say anything more. Then Mary, tilting her wine glass with a triumphant look, said to me,
You should just speak up, Kevin. Putting down such a vain and heartless woman would serve her right.
Hearing this, Linda raised her voice.
What is this? Who does this lady think she is? So rude to speak like that upon first meeting. Outsiders should keep quiet.
Ignoring Linda's words, Mary continued.
Rude? That's funny coming from you. You're much ruder. Well, take a good look with those clouded eyes of yours. Hey, bartender, show this rude lady the magazine from earlier, please.
Mary shouted to the bartender.
The magazine from earlier, right. Here it is.
The bartender placed an international edition of the globally famous fashion magazine Beauty Woman, abbreviated as BW, on the counter where we were sitting.
What is this?
Linda said, her eyes wide as she looked at the magazine cover.
Yes, that man on the cover is Kevin.
Mary said, looking even more triumphant.
No way. Isn't this a shot with the world-famous singer, Maria Smith? What's going on?
Linda frantically flipped through the magazine.
What? A 10-page feature with Maria Smith and Kevin? Why?
Linda looked through the articles and photos in the magazine, flipping back and forth in a fluster.
Explain this to me, Kevin.
Instead of me, Mary began to explain.
As you see, Kevin has become the exclusive hairstylist for the world-famous singer Maria Smith. His talent is highly regarded. and he's been getting offers from famous designers at Paris Fashion Week to do hair and makeup for their models. From your dowdy fashion today, it seems like you only know about local stuff and are clueless about the world. Did you know that in the global scene, hairstylist Kevin is a celebrity?
While listening, Linda repeatedly muttered in disbelief. No way.
Because Kevin, you were just a hairstylist at some small, obscure salon in the suburbs. How did you rise to prominence like this?
While I was employed at the salon, I participated in various competitions. Even when we were married, I was challenging myself in contests and talked to you about it. But you looked down on me, never really listened or showed any interest. I didn't get great results in domestic contests, but when I took a chance and entered international ones, I was recognized. That led to being spotted by a renowned hairstylist, training under them, and then entering bigger contests. I won first prize there and got hired as Maria Smith's personal hairstylist. I explained to Linda, though I felt no need to. But since Mary had already shared much about my background, I reluctantly added my own explanation.
That's incredible, Kevin.
Lindy exclaimed, then added,
Just like my ex-husband to achieve such things. Hey everyone, I'm his ex-wife, you know, Kevin. Let's meet up sometimes as exes, okay? For starters, I'd love to get Maria Smith's autograph. Can I meet her too?
I was astounded. Once she knew I had connections with celebrities, her attitude completely changed. She's so shallow.
You are such a despicable woman. Shame on you. Stay away from Kevin for good. Ex-wife or whatever, you have no relation to him now, right? By the way, you called Kevin's shirt cheap earlier, but it's from a famous brand, you know, this. You can't even recognize quality.
Mary raised her voice. But Linda, undeterred, wrapped her arm around mine and said,
Hey, Kevin. I've been regretting, you know, I think you were the better man after all. Mike has been all about work lately and doesn't pay attention to me. I feel so lonely. Please, I'm going to divorce Mike. Can we start over again?
I instinctively shouted, "Stop it," and shook her arm off.
Kevin really shook you off with disgust, didn't he? Makes sense. There's no way he'd reconcile with someone like you. Because, oh, speaking of that.
At Mary's words, I turned to see a silhouette of a petite woman. Sarah. The woman I called Sarah was my girlfriend.
Sarah, don't misunderstand, okay? Kevin did nothing wrong. It's all this woman's fault. She's the one who unilaterally wrapped her arm around him.
Mary defended me.
Yes, I saw everything. You're Linda, the ex-wife, right? Kevin showed me your picture before. I know how much Kevin despises you. I've been watching everything from a bit ago. She really is shameless.
Sarah said that. Mary was rolling on the floor laughing, saying, I can't believe sweet Sarah's throwing such shade. Then Linda, pale-faced, realized, wait a minute. Isn't this girl, Sarah, Kevin's childhood friend?
Wait, how does she know me? This is scary.
Sarah was taken aback. Then a familiar male voice was heard.
Linda, what was that earlier? Asking Kevin to start over, getting that close to him.
My brother, and Linda's husband, Mike, was standing there.
What, Mike? How long have you been there?
Linda panicked.
I saw everything, how you were throwing yourself at Kevin. I heard it all. We're getting a divorce, you deceitful person.
Mike said, his voice trembling with emotion.
Kevin, I may have married Linda in a way that seemed like I stole her from you, but I've finally seen the truth. I was naive. I'm ashamed that I was fooled by Linda's sweet talk and fibs she told. I sincerely apologize for hurting my brother, Kevin. I'm truly, truly sorry.
Mike apologized deeply to me. It's okay. I don't hold a grudge. It's good that you've come to your senses, Mike. But maybe you should improve your judgment of women.
That's right. I need to reflect on that. I'll start over after the divorce.
No way. I won't let you divorce me. What are you talking about, Mike? Hey, we vowed our love for each other.
Linda clung to Mike's arm. But Mike, with a look of disgust, shook off her arm and coldly declared, "Don't touch me. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce." Linda was sobbing uncontrollably.
But, it's so unfair. I've loved Kevin since we were kids. I dreamed of marrying Kevin ever since he was kind to me, the new girl in elementary school. So, when we reconnected at the reunion and started dating, then got married, I was so happy. That Sarah girl. She was from another school and used to be in the same calligraphy class as Kevin in elementary, right? I always saw it. Kevin coming home from calligraphy class with that girl. And now you're dating her. How cruel. I love Kevin more than anyone.
Linda cried as she spoke. I was dumbfounded. Then why, while married to me, did you decide to divorce and remarry my brother? Isn't that a terrible thing to do? Do you understand how I felt, betrayed by both my wife and brother? Have you ever considered other people's feelings? Or do you just grab whatever you want based on your whims? That's childish. No, even children understand others' pain. After our divorce, I struggled with insomnia because the emotional wounds wouldn't heal. Then I reconnected with Sarah through a local friend, and she was there for me, supporting me through my pain and considering my feelings. And now, Linda, you've hurt my brother Mike. You tried to get back with me in front of him, saying, "Can't we start over?" You've hurt people repeatedly. When will you be satisfied? You really are the lowest. I let out.
But wanting a husband with abilities and good income is natural, right? I divorced Kevin and remarried Mike because he had a higher income. But now Kevin is more successful and famous. So naturally, I think we should get back together, right?
In the next moment, Mary burst out laughing, saying,
Kevin and Mike, this woman is unbelievable. Cut ties with her quickly.
Then Mary addressed Linda.
Linda, I can somewhat understand your feelings, but fundamentally, as a person, you are wrong. If you like, I'm always here at this bar. Come see me. I'll give you a thorough lecture and straighten out your attitude.
The bartender chimed in.
Once you're in Mary's lecture hell, even the crying kids go silent.
Hearing this, I couldn't help but add, I know. I've seen plenty of people here tremble in fear under Mary's scolding hell. Both the bartender and I chuckled, while Mike and Linda were frozen with expressionless faces.
I'll be staying in a business hotel for the next 3 days, so you need to move out of the house within that time. I'll start the divorce proceedings tonight.
Mike told Linda. Realizing Mike's seriousness, Linda silently paid the bartender and left the bar alone.
Well said, I've got the gist of it. You were deceived by that woman for a long time, right? Well, your sin is not excusable, but you have no choice but to deeply reflect. Kevin is a magnanimous man, so I think he will forgive you. For now, buy Kevin a drink, and one for me too.
Mary said, looking at Mike.
Understood. Bartender, around for Kevin, the lady next to him. And Kevin's girlfriend too, please.
Then I seated Mike at the counter, leaving a seat empty between Mary and me, and I moved next to Sarah.
Today was our wedding anniversary. I never expected things to turn out like this.
Mike said, crestfallen. Mary silently comforted him by patting his shoulder. But Mike, you're stubborn once you make up your mind, right? If you've decided to divorce Linda and start over, I'm sure happiness will come your way. I encouraged him.
I'm a lousy brother who hurt you. Sorry.
Mike said,
Come on, it's all good. The evil spirit is gone. Now let's toast.
Mary raised her cocktail glass high, bought by Mike.
But today is an important day for Kevin. Enough about your brotherly woes. If you're truly reflective as a brother, then celebrate your brother's new beginning.
Mary told Mike.
New beginning?
Yeah, I'm actually moving to France for a while because of work. So, I pulled out a small box from my pocket. Sarah, please come with me. Let's get married. I will make you happy for sure. Inside the box was a ring. I had told Sarah about moving to France, but it was the first time I asked her to come with me. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said, "Thank you. I'd love to. I'll follow you. I will support you as your wife for life." The bartender quietly clapped his hands. Noticing this, Mary stood up, shouting, "Bravo," and clapped her hands. Other customers in the bar also turned to us and applauded. I glanced over to see Mike crying with big tears rolling down his face. Half a year later, I had expanded my work and network in France, achieving great success as a hair and makeup artist. Sarah and I were also living happily together. During a temporary return to the US, I visited my parents' house. My mother said,
Recently, Linda's parents came to apologize. We were worried when you and Linda divorced and she remarried Mike, but you said you three had agreed, so we shouldn't worry, right? But after talking to her parents, I finally understood it was all a mess. They felt responsible for raising Linda to be so selfish. They were very apologetic. Well, I always thought you boys lacked judgment in women.
My mother said, laughing. She raised us with a belief in the importance of high education, but now she has mellowed and supports my career. My father, needless to say, is also fully supportive.
By the way, Mike is dating a woman his age he met at work. I hope it works out for him this time, like it did for you and Sarah.
My mother shared this news with me. I was happy. I want Mike to find happiness too. And now I hope Linda will change, so her parents won't have to apologize for their daughter again at their age. It's possible to make wrong choices in life. Ideally, one should not make mistakes, but what matters is how you handle them afterward. I believe not everything will be smooth sailing in life ahead, but I plan to cherish each moment and move forward. There's a place for me in France. There's still a long way to go. With that thought, I left my family home and looked up at the sky, ready to board my flight.